Pigeons and doves constitute the family Columbidae within the order of the Columbiforms. Within this family there are approximately 40 genera with over 300 species. And today we want to look at the Australian Columbiforms. The word columbine is Latin for pigeon or dove, and we will see that there are several other words in Greek and Latin for these birds. Here is the common pigeon, 3 of them drinking at a water point out west. Most people relate to these birds as being within cities, but the rock dove, introduced to Australia as the common racing pigeon, has now established itself within rural areas of Australia. The first Australian columbiform that we will look at is this little pair of birds. These are peaceful doves sitting on a perch, acting a little bit like citizen lovebirds with allopreening. I can't tell the male from the female, for columbiforms are isomorphic. There is no differentiation between the male and the female. Columbiforms are generally flock birds, eating and drinking together, as you can see here at a water point. Watch the method of drinking, we will talk more about this later. All columbiforms are usually in pairs, but sometimes the flock can go up to many birds. With the peaceful dove, I have seen flocks up to 50. The binomial name for the peaceful dove is Geopelia placida. Geo for ground, pelia, another Greek word for dove, and placida for peaceful. So a peaceful ground dove. There are several distinctive movements with the columbiforms. With a mated pair, you will often see them bow, tail display, and vocalise, often associated with lateral movement of the wings. This is a courtship routine for all the columbiforms. The peaceful doves, like most other pigeons and doves, is found largely on the ground. They are often in larger groups or flocks and feed mainly on seed. Another movement of the columbiforms is head bobbing. This is to help with visual acuity. The eyes of a peaceful dove point lateral. This is the same for all the columbiforms. So with the lateral eyes they have a very wide field of view. Well, laterally, they can obviously see forward, so they can peck at the food on the ground. But their posterior vision is limited. The eye of most birds is much better than a mammalian eye in terms of resolution. The fovea, or the area where there is a density of rods and cones much greater than the rest of the retina, is the point where eyes focus. And the fovea of a bird is much larger than a mammalian eye. But with a lateral pointing eye, stereoscopic vision is limited, so judging distances can be difficult. But the creation of an avian eye is also different, for the avian eye can change its shape from oval to more elliptical. So as the orbital muscles contract and relax, the depth of the eye changes, allowing for pinpoint focusing on an object. With the combination of head bobbing, where the head moves forward before the bird takes a step, pigeons and doves with lack of stereoscopic vision can still feed and check for predators without difficulty. Throughout this video you will see that there are 2 sorts of feeding patterns with the pigeons and doves, those eating seed off the ground, and later we will come to the frugivorous pigeons and doves, where feeding is mainly arboreal. The diamond dove, like the peaceful dove, belongs to the genus Geopelia, or ground dove, for they are usually found feeding on the ground, foraging for seed. The Geopelia we think of as birds, but the only time they really move into an arboreal area is when they are roosting. So both diamond and peaceful dove are found more commonly on the ground feeding. The species name for the diamond dove is cuneata, for this really means there are small lunar type markings. This is why it is called the diamond dove, because the little markings are like diamonds on the wing. The diamond and peaceful doves can be separated by the periorbital colour around the eye. The diamond dove is red, the peaceful dove blue, but often they cohabit together. Highlighted here is a solitary diamond dove amongst the peaceful. Here are some examples of the flock behaviour of the diamond dove, with roosting, feeding and drinking. Again, while drinking, watch how these birds drink. A quick fly in and a quick fly out. Here we will leave the diamond dove with another display of mateship. The bar-shouldered dove is native to Australia and New Guinea. It is found along the northern coast, coming down to the Pilbara region in the west, and then down along the eastern coast. The numbers in the southern areas of Victoria and South Australia do appear to be increasing. The copper colour at the nape of the neck in bar-shouldered doves can be quite spectacular with its iridescence. Doves can visualise in the ultraviolet wavelength, so these vibrancy changes that occur with breeding modes would be spectacular to be able to be seen through the eyes of the columbiforms. Bar-shouldered doves are usually found in small groups, occasionally in pairs. The periorbital eye colour of the bar-shouldered dove is grey, but in breeding mode it goes into a maroon colour in both sexes. The vocal repertory of the Columbidae is not large. This also includes the bar-shouldered dove. Interestingly though, they can warn other birds of danger. This is achieved by the acceleration speed at takeoff. The faster the speed, so the higher the frequency that comes from the vibration of the primary wing feathers. Just listen as this bar-shouldered dove accelerates away from having a drink. Before the fluttering action, there is a clap, and this is the warning sound. A flash of green in a rainforest environment in Australia is different than the open woodlands where we expect the lorikeets. Here, the emerald dove. The Australian emerald dove is now called the Pacific emerald dove because of its distribution. In Australia, it's at the top end and along the east coast. It differs from the common emerald dove of India and Southeast Asia in that it lacks the white markings over the head. The genus name for the emerald dove is Chalcophaps. Chalco from copper. Spilopelia is a genus of doves found in Australia that came from imports in the late 1800s. There are two birds represented here, the laughing dove and the spotted dove. Spilo is Greek for spotted, and pelia another Greek word for dove. The spotted dove is found in the southeast corner of Australia, whereas the laughing dove is exclusively found in the southwest. With the bronzewing pigeons, when one looks at phylogenetic terminology of pigeons, the word Phaps is used. This is Greek for pigeon. And then there are the Geophaps, the earthbound pigeons, such as the squatted and the Spinifex pigeon. Then there is Ociphaps, which are the fast pigeons.
Bronzewing pigeons are native to Australia, and they are quite characteristic. A bronze-winged pigeon is one that has rainbow iridescence in the wing operculum, and in the adult there is a green coppery colour.
The bronzewings belong to the genus Phaps, and the common bronzewing as shown here is the best recognised of all of these birds, as it is the most common, found throughout most of Australia. Watch the drinking of this bird. The pigeons have the ability of the tongue to rise against the palate, making a suction swallowing motion. So the Columbidae do not need gravity for drinking, they can swallow. As mentioned, the genus name for the bronzewing is Phaps, but the interesting thing is the species name is chalcoptera. Chalc, also for bronze or copper, and optera for wing. So these birds are described as having a metallic wing.
This is a short, stout bird that is prized by Indigenous people as being a good meal.
As mentioned earlier, Columbidae mate for life, and they often give various courtship rituals, bowing, fanning their tails and opening their wings. The male often doesn't know if the female is receptive to mating, and often there is a great deal of chasing before mating occurs. The common bronzewing is a rather flighty bird, and the first pigeon that we've looked at that shows a degree of dysmorphism. The pale head of the juvenile becomes yellowish in the male, but remains rather grey in the female. The common bronzewing is a member of the genus Phaps. The Phaps includes those with rainbow-coloured operculums, and other Phaps species are the flock bronzewing and the brush bronzewing. The most colourful of all the operculums of these birds is the brush bronzewing. The next genus of Australian pigeon we want to look at is the Geophaps, or the ground pigeons. And in the top end of Australia we have the Partridge Pigeons, with a carunculated periorbital eye ring. The other Geophaps are also beautiful birds, the Spinifex Pigeon and the Squatter Pigeon. All pigeons are stocky birds, and when they walk on the ground, their belly virtually touches it. But outstanding amongst these is the Squatter Pigeon, so called because even in a standing position it looks as though it's in a squat, and roosting mostly on the ground, it also adopts a squat position. And so this bird is another Geophaps, or earth pigeon. The species name is scripta because it spends so much time on the ground. Scripta means written, and so this bird is written into the earth. Historically, the Partridge Pigeon group was made up of the Partridge Pigeon that we just looked at and this bird, the Squatter Pigeon. And the obvious resemblance of these birds to the Northern Hemisphere partridges is obvious. With a similarity between these two partridge-looking birds, one wonders how Spinifex pigeons were included in the Geophaps, for the Spinifex pigeon has a large erect crest. The plumes on the crest of a Spinifex pigeon give rise to its species name, Plumifera. I'm sure, however, you have all noticed the similarities. It is the eye and the periorbital carunculated skin. Then they also all have a common behavioural pattern. Firstly, they are intensely flock orientated, and when the flock is disturbed and they take off, they have this rapid acceleration as though a burst of quail has left the earth. The flight is short, usually landing again on the ground, living up to the name Geophaps. The periorbital eye colour of the squatter pigeon is usually orange in this video, but now and again you'll see one bird pops up where it has a yellow colour, and this is the northern subspecies. I don't know what it was doing down here towards the southern part of Cape York, but it was good to see two subspecies together. Again, another columbiform trait, with a pair of squatters that have mated for life, opening and closing the tail and wings, bowing to one another in acknowledgement. Ociphaps lophotes, the crested pigeon. Here, oci is Greek for sharp or pointed, and the lophotes means crest. And so we get the name from the Greek, the crested pigeon. Like some of the other pigeons we've already seen, when the crested pigeon takes off, it leaves this beautiful whistling vibration. In crested pigeons, the third primary feather from the tip of the wing is thinner than the other primary feathers. As the bird flies off accelerating, this feather vibrates rapidly, giving rise to the distinctive sound of the bird taking off. And so the other birds of the flock can be given warning that danger is present.
Courtship rituals for the crested pigeon are similar to the other pigeons and doves. Here is the classic pigeon kiss. These birds can exchange milk, or what is called pigeon milk, that is produced in the crop of these birds when they kiss like this.
Pigeon crop milk, just like mammalian breast milk, is most important for raising the young. Rich in protein, and just like mammalian milk, it contains immunoglobulins, important in terms of bacterial and viral defence for the developing chick. So through transference of IgA globulins in the crop milk, so the young chick has immunity from a multiplicity of infections. There are also growth factors within this crop milk. The most important one seems to be that for lymphocyte stimulation, developing the immune system, especially that of the lymphoid system of the gastrointestinal tract. With the growth factors in the crop milk, the growth of a young newborn chick of a pigeon is phenomenal. They can double their birth weight within 48 hours. And it is both the male and the female pigeon that feed their young, and both male and female birds, not that we can tell them apart, produce crop milk. Here there is an interesting physiological feature. In mammalian milk production, the hormone that causes milk production is prolactin. And interestingly, with crop milk in pigeons, prolactin levels rise in the breeding phase, stimulating crop milk production, just the same as they do in mammalian breast milk production. And so, as these birds go into their breeding phase, prolactin levels rise and crop milk is produced. The prolactin levels rise in both the male and the female, so both can feed their young on this very protein-rich source of food.
The Spinifex pigeon is another crested pigeon where the crest stands vertical. Don't get confused with the top-knot pigeon. The top-knot pigeon crest is not elevated, but instead lies flat. The Spinifex pigeon is the master of camouflage, preferring to hide in the red, rocky soils of grass-covered ridges in northern Australia where it is relatively dry.
Typical of the Geophaps, these birds when in flight only take short flights, much preferring to stay on the ground. In Australia, we have two rock pigeons, the white-quilled and the chestnut-quilled rock pigeon. Both of these inhabit the northern parts of Australia on the western side. Like the ground pigeons, these spend most of their time in rocky canyons where there are holes in the side walls and a rock to perch on and observe. They are seed eaters, having long tails and their wings drop down below the side of their body. This gives them a pheasant appearance, and this is how they get their binomial name, Petro Phassa. Petro for rock, because they live in the canyons, and Phassa for the appearance, like a pheasant. Though we call this a rock dove, it is far removed from the feral pigeons. The favourite of many pigeons is, after they're finished feeding, is to perch on a rocky point where they can observe for various threats, and so it is with the rock-quilled pigeons. Columbia leucomela, leuco for white, mela for black, a pied pigeon, otherwise known as the white-headed pigeon. Now, in contrast to many of the pigeons that we've seen feeding seed off the ground, the white-headed pigeon is far more arboreal, feeding more off fruits in the canopy of trees.
The numbers in the southern areas of Australia are perhaps increasing. Some people believe this is related to the proliferation of camphor laurel trees. There is much debate about camphor laurels and whether they are toxic or not to birds, but overall there's no definitive evidence to suggest that they are. The main problem with camphor laurel is that it displays its native vegetation along waterways. Some people group pied imperial pigeon separately to the Torresian pigeon, but for all purposes they are much alike, with a yellowish bill, white with black wingtips, a dark eye, and the tail vent is barred. There is a sedentary population in the top end of Australia on the coastal rainforest areas. In the wet season of the top end, the numbers increased from a migratory influx. They come across the Torres Strait when palms of the tropics fruit and food is far more readily available.
The highest concentration of the Tillonopus fruit doves is around the Wallace Line, but more species are on the western side of the Wallace Line. Several species have gone to the Philippines. Only a few have crossed the Wallace Line going up towards Malaysia. In Australia we have 5 members of the genus Tillonopus, and this little one with a pink head is the rose-crowned fruit dove, Tillonopus regina. The Tillonopus fruit doves separate themselves in behaviour from the other pigeons and doves in that they are more arboreal in their behaviour, very rarely coming to the ground. From the smallest fruit dove to the largest, here is the Wampu fruit dove, Tillonopus magnificus, or the magnificent fruit dove. Despite the purple chest, he is often hard to find because this bird inhabits the top canopy of fruiting trees, eating mostly fleshy fruits. It is found only on the east coast of Australia and also found in PNG. Another frugivorous bird, the top-knot pigeon, Lopholaimus, Antarctica. Now lophos means tufted, and there are tufts of feathers around the throat of this bird, and amos is indeed throat. The species name Antarcticus implies that this bird is found in the southern hemisphere, and like the wampu, this bird is on the east coast, living in the top canopy, eating on fleshy fruits and palm seed of the temperate and tropical forests.
The bill of most birds is made of bone, but covering the bone there is a layer of keratin, and in some pigeons, like the top knot, this is thickened at the base. This operculum base varies in columbines, and pigeon fanciers have taken the advantage, sometimes making some of their exotic birds with very large fleshy bases to the bill.
Macropygia means long tail, and the brown cuckoo-dove has the longest tail of all the Australian pigeons and doves. Historically it was taxonomically placed in the Phasianella group, or pheasant doves, and so the species name is still Phasianella. The brown cuckoo dove will spend time on the ground feeding on seed, but predominantly it is found in the canopy looking for fruit. In the background where this video was filmed, you can hear the brown cuckoo dove calling, constantly repeating itself, "I do walk, I do walk, I do walk." The Wonga pigeon is a plump pigeon. I've often mentioned that pigeons, when standing or walking, are low to the ground, especially the squatter pigeon. The Wonga pigeon, being a large plump bird, is also very low to the ground. This is not because of short legs, but because these birds have a large sternal keel. Pigeons, being plump birds, need a lot of muscle power to get into flight. And remember that some pigeons, particularly the racing pigeons and rock doves, can accelerate vertically, just like a Harrier jet plane. And to do this, they need a lot of muscle. The wing muscles attach to the sternal keel, and this keel, now being larger, projects out beyond the belly of the bird. And so they always appear low, not because of their legs, but the large sternal keel. These birds can be found in the coastal ranges along the eastern coast of Australia. You can hear the call, walk, walk, walk. They eat mostly off the ground, eating seed and fallen fruit. The binomial name for the Wonga pigeon is Leucosarcia melanoleuca, being first described by John Latham in 1801. Latham placed it in the genus Columbia. Then in 1843 John Gould made a new genera for this bird and called it Leucosarcia, or a white flesh bird, for this bird was prized for eating. The name Wonga is the indigenous name given to this bird around Sydney, for the indigenous people recognise this bird because of its call, not walk, walk, but Wonga, Wonga, Wonga. One final point on the Wonga pigeon: if you go back and look at historical birding books, you will find it has undergone species name change as well as genus. We have gone back to the name melanoleuca, which is what Latham used in his original description. After Latham, the term piccata was used frequently. Piccata and melanoleuca both mean pied or black and white bird or smeared with tar, melanoleuca being Latin and piccata Greek. To finish this video, the last clip will show, again, how pigeons and doves drink. They can swallow. They don't use gravity. On behalf of the Plumes of Oz, I would like to thank you for watching this video. Hope you enjoyed it. If so, please subscribe and you'll be notified of our next video release of Australian birds in the wild.